You have to forgive how terrible look I've been doing talks all the way over the other side of the county all day for 12 hours of being out of the house. And apologies for Pumpkin can't keep coming in on this interview. This is an interview with Ryan Swain. I have known Ryan since he was a young person, and isn't it interesting how some young people, I've worked with thousands over the years, and some really, really stand out. And Ryan was one of those young people that stands out. Always remember him being a very kind, caring, generous, funny, talented young person. And I've obviously followed his career and seen him become the same, but as an adult. I've also seen him get criticism for a lot of those things. I'm just going to ignore it. And there's a cat's bum. I mean, where else but an ADHD podcast would you have that? Getting criticism for it. And it's funny because the criticism comes from a neurotypical viewpoint. Ryan is a skateboarder. He runs skate teaching. He's campaigned. He runs Rydell Skate School. He does events. He's a DJ. He's an entertainer. I've seen him do stand-up. I've seen him rap. Like a typical ADHD person, a polymath, like really good at lots of different things. It's great to see him being successful. I know some of the struggles he's had. Unfortunately, we only had an hour, and is the sort of person that we could talk to for 4 hours, so we're going to get into that a bit more. But if you've enjoyed this, please, obviously, people with ADHD, FRSD, it'd be really lovely if all of you who listen have enjoyed it, go and say hello to Ryan and say thank you that you enjoyed it. That'd be really nice. He's there on all the socials. Go and big him up. He gets a lot of stick, so having people big him up as well would be really good. Thank you so much for listening. Let's just get straight to the interview. Ryan Swain, welcome to the ADHD podcast.
Thanks for having me on, James. Yeah, I'm excited about opening up and talking all things ADHD with you this evening, so it should be good.
It's going to be a really interesting conversation, and you're doing similar things to me where you have been on a long journey through life and had the ability to kind of recognize the condition, the person, and the things that need changing. So you've been doing a lot of campaigning. Before we kind of go into the story, do you want to just let everyone know kind of what you've been doing recently, the work you've been
Yeah,
doing?
sure. So, well, it's sort of become more recognised and more notable what I've been doing recently, but I've been doing it for quite a while now, and it's sort of become more prolific over the last sort of year, especially around ADHD Awareness Month. A lot of keynote speaking and a lot of motivational talks, not just about me and my life, but about neurodiversity and ADHD and everything that's practically themed around the spectrum. Trying to sort of inspire young people to be more open and understand and comprehend neurodiversity, because I still don't think it's something that everybody grasps, especially in the education system. So I've been going into schools and colleges and community hubs and groups and things, and basically doing what we're doing this evening, and that's, kickstarting a conversation around ADHD. And I've obviously been highlighting the pros and cons to this condition, how it's helped me with certain things in my life and in my personal life and in my career, and how it's also been a major hindrance and, and all the negatives as well. So yeah, I try and keep it as neutral as possible, which is quite a difficult thing to do, because I like to think that it's kind of helped me do a lot of amazing things that I probably wouldn't have been able to do without it, if that makes sense. But at the same time, it's also caused me a lot of strife.
Yeah.
I know. So,
And I think we'll get into some of that later on, because I think
yeah,
one of the main reasons I want to talk to you is I think you and I are quite sim. In fact, people said, "Oh, look, there's James's twin," when you were talking.
yeah,
But,
James's twin.
but we're quite similar in the reason some of our success is down to ADHD, and that's something that people don't recognize. But I think we also get criticism for it, but we'll come on to that later on because I
Yeah,
think,
absolutely. Yeah. So that could be a good conversation. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go right back to the beginning. So, where were you born? Tell me about what you can remember your childhood and what your parents told you.
Absolutely. I was born in Malton in North Yorkshire. Um, and I was probably one of the last. In fact, there was a few. There was a generation after me that was born here, but we were one of the last generations to be born at Malton Hospital,
Right.
as it's now completely closed. I mean, it is operational, but it's not. There's no maternity unit and there's no A&E. It's basically, dare I say it, sort of a old people's home where elderly people go spend the sort of last few years or maybe the last few weeks of life.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a lot of elderly people in there that have got mental health problems and things. But in terms of, maternity and stuff, there's none of that now. So it's quite sad, really. So yeah, I was born in Malton, grew up in Norton and Malton. But then I went to school. Well, I started going to nursery in Norton. I did my early years, primary school, etc., in Norton, which was very complex, very difficult. Probably the earliest memories that I have of feeling sort of different was probably the fact that I was a very sick and ill child from
Right.
birth, with a heart condition, cardiological condition called I had a patent arterial ductus, which is a open valve in your heart that stays open basically when you're born. And most people, it heals naturally, or it heals over the duration, maybe over a year or two. Mine stayed open till I was 4 years old. It made me very, very sick because what it actually does in layman's terms is it starts applying excess pressure on your major arteries around your body.
Right.
So, and then it obviously implodes and all your organs, vital organs explode and things. It's quite a nasty, nasty thing. So obviously I was sort of destined for death basically from the off. But um, but yeah, like I say, I was very, very sick. But this is what I say in these talks and things when I'm going out doing my thing, is that to everybody else, my family friends or my family or teachers at school, nursery, people on the street, I just look like a very hyperactive, energetic, out of control, restless child that basically couldn't sit still, couldn't do as he was told, couldn't listen very well, couldn't function very well, and just wanted to do everything basically.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, the two didn't really go hand in hand. You to look at me, you wouldn't have thought, "Oof, he's dying, he's a sick child." But at the same time, inside, I was dying, and um, I actually collapsed when I was younger, and that prompted my mum and dad to take me to the hospital and the GP, and they found that there was a murmur and there was something wrong with my heart, and they got to the bottom of it, and he basically gave me a few days to live, but then
Right.
referred me straight away to. I went to Scarborough first to see a guy called Dr. Dickinson, who was a cardiological specialist. He says they actually got that wrong. Probably not got a few days, but in reality, you've probably got a few months to live.
Right.
So either way you look at it, it's still pretty grim.
This must have
Uh,
been terrifying for your parents.
you see, I don't really remember any of that, but I remember him being very sad and very upset and sort of wondering why, and swinging from curtain to curtain like Mowgli out of the Jungle Book.
So am I
Uh,
right in saying your hyperactivity hid the symptoms of this condition?
yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. I think this the severity of the condition and how it affects most children that haven't got a neurological or a neurodevelopmental condition. You would be resting up. You wouldn't want to do anything. Be very sick. You present yourself as a very sick person. Probably wanted to sleep a lot and not really do anything. But I was far from that. I couldn't have been any further from that if I tried to be. Um, but again, it's that sort of brain and body impairment. Do you know what I mean? Your brain's telling you to do something, and your body's telling you something different. And now at 35 years old, I don't really see any difference in that. It's still exactly the same, and it probably has been the same right through this journey that we're speaking about tonight. And it's probably going to be like that for another 35 years if I live that long. So, and to me, that's what ADHD is. You know, it's definitely a sort of chemical brain thing where it's imbalanced and impaired from your body. Do you know what I mean? It's your brain doing something different to what your body's doing, and yeah, that's what it was like for me as a kid, really, and still is now to some extent.
Yeah. Yeah. I think most listeners will recognize that as well.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so you went from there, you got healed.
Yep.
Um,
I had an operation at Killingbeck Hospital, which is sadly no longer there now. And it's a bit of a I always drive back when I go into Leeds and go on the old A64 in. I always feel very sad when I drive past and I see this great big glittering monument of capitalism sat right on top of what was Killingbeck Hospital, and now there's a great big Asda and
right.
McDonald's and KFC and all them great American things sat on top of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I look at it and I think that's a really, really sad thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think St. Jimmy's has got a great, cardiological part. But yeah, for me, it saved a lot of lives, that place.
Yeah.
And I'll be, eternally grateful for what they did for me. And yeah, it was life changing. It was definitely life changing for my mum and dad, and it
Mm.
certainly gave me a different outlook on life after it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, to literally face down death like that, it must do something for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in true ADHD fashion, you kind of forget, you forget the actual how extreme it was. Do you know
Mm.
what I mean? And it's still my mum still gets emotional about it now, I think.
Right.
So,
I can imagine, yeah.
yeah.
That was probably for a parent the most traumatic thing, isn't it? Is the potential of losing your child. So
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, no parent should have to make them decisions. Do you know what I mean? So, but unfortunately, it comes up, and when the time comes, you've got to make that decision. And my mum and dad were presented with an option.
mm,
It wasn't as straightforward as let's get Ryan to Killingbeck. We're going to give him a major heart operation, and that's that.
mm,
There was the way this valve was sat. It was a difficult place to get in through open heart surgery. So there was always going to be complexities and always going to be, it was always going to be quite an intricate operation, no matter how they did it. But at the time in 1995, 94, late 94, they were experimenting with keyhole surgery then, which was unheard of, especially in cardiology.
mm,
And they were experimenting with it, and they sort of presented it very well to my mum and dad, and said this could be another option if you don't want Ryan to have open heart surgery, is to go in through his groin with keyhole, and the healing process is a lot quicker, obviously. So, but there was no guarantee that it would work. That was the only thing.
yeah,
Then again, my dad said the coin's been flipped anyway because there was no guarantee that the open heart surgery was going to work, and he didn't
yeah,
want me looking down at myself and constantly being scarred and reminded of that for the rest of my life. So I'm appreciative of that, I think.
yeah,
But yeah, so all this was going on, incredibly sick, major heart surgery. Yet I was still restless, still doing absolutely everything that I could possibly, get my hands on or get involved with.
yeah,
Couldn't shut off, was restless, fidgety, from what I remember. Loved to talk like I do now, obviously, and you know, that probably didn't make any sense then, and I probably don't make any sense now. So nothing's really changed, has it? But yeah, the two never matched. The two never went together. You'd overlook my illness, I think, because of how I was. So
yeah, yeah. And potentially the ADHD could have made you lose your life because that might not have been seen if you hadn't collapsed. until it was too
Yeah,
late.
absolutely. It wasn't till after the operation that when I started reception and then into my year one and year two at primary school, sorry, uh, that my mum, the alarm bell started ringing with my mum. She picked up on it quite quickly. She's always been quite ahead. She's like you. She likes reading. She's always forward thinking. Um, and she's not in denial about nothing. So she kind of had done a little bit of research on this thing, ADHD. It was a very Americanized thing then. Do you know what I mean? There wasn't a lot of resources or information on it like there is now. Um, but she started to see a lot of signs, shall we
Yeah,
say, from a
yeah,
very, very early age.
that's good.
And I always remember her sort of bringing that up and not that she ever wanted to label me or, stamp me anything, but she wanted me to be understood, I think, especially at school when I used to get bad reports. And, but no, they didn't have that then. They just,
Yeah, yeah.
you labeled bad kid or labeled naughty or, disruptive. And then it just sort of went out of control from there. So.
What was primary school like for you then?
To be honest, I always turn up with everything that I do, whether it's school, whether it was school, whether it's an occupation, whether it's going to play football like I'm doing tonight, whatever. I always turn up to things with 110% enthusiasm, and I always have done. And I think that's a very ADHD thing.
Mm,
I think a lot of ADHDers overshare things, overthink things, overfeel sometimes in some respects. Um, and when they're fully engaged and fully hyperfixated on something, or they want to try to be something or do something, they will give it everything they've got. And speaking about myself there, I think that's how I've always sort of got through life, even from a young age at primary school. But yeah, it was challenging. There was distractions everywhere, from what I remember vaguely. I just used to I see it more, I used to see it more of a social thing. It was where I used to go to sort of talk or burn out or have my energy released. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
I wasn't really sort of seeing the bigger picture in terms of fully comprehending, understanding why people go to school or college or university or anything along them lines. I sort of saw a different side to it. And maybe if I'd understood, or tried to understand, or people tried to understand me better,
yeah.
things might have been different. But
Did you notice that you were seemingly a different human being to your friends at primary school? Did you start to recognize that then?
maybe not at first. Maybe not at first, because I've never walked into a room and be like, "Oh, I'm so different to everybody else." Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's never really been like that. However, socially, you could see differences
Mm,
in myself to some of the other children around me.
yeah.
That sort of confidence has always been there from a young age. Sometimes overconfident, where you have no, like I said at the beginning of this conversation, it's your brain and body doing two different things. And your mind or your brain's telling your body that you can do this, you're capable of doing this, you're gonna do this, you're gonna make this happen. Um, Even if you didn't want to do it or you felt a
Yeah.
little shy or insecure about it, you'd still do it because you'd act on that impulse.
Yeah.
And that impulsivity was something that was there right from the off at primary school, and it got me into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think about the consequences of anything,
Yeah.
just out of the pan and into the fire, and that's how it was.
Yeah.
Um, but it was tough. It still is tough. There's more distractions now than ever. Me at 35, in present day, and I find life difficult, at the best of times. But I feel like I've got that under wraps now, and I'm a bit of sort of a Jedi master in terms of like Yoda of ADHD. Do you know?
It is one of those contradictory conditions because it brings out Loyal Kana, he says it's the very best and the very worst thing about me. And I
Yeah,
think that's something
exactly.
I
Yeah.
relate to, and I imagine
That's a
you do as well.
wonderful. That's a wonderful analogy of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've always said it's my best friend and my worst enemy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think of me as a massive advocate for ADHD and neurodiversity and stuff, and they're always thinking that I'm saying it's a superpower, and I'm sort of maybe upselling it a little bit, and it's not really like that. I feel like, yes, if it's harnessed correctly, used correctly, it can be a wonderful tool, and
Yeah.
you can do a lot of things. It's a no-brainer to use that energy, and then that innovative way of thinking. But if it's not controlled, then it has a massive detrimental effect to the rest of your life, and it will, and it can carry on having an effect in your life. It's never going to go away.
Mm.
And I've learned to accept that, and I think the acceptance, like we spoke about when we met up a few weeks ago, I think that's the biggest part to anybody being successful with
Yeah.
these conditions, because some people don't want to accept it, and
Yeah.
if you can't accept it, then it's just going to get worse, isn't it? So
Pride is really important, and often we do. The majority of the conversation is negative, and someone asked me recently when I did a talk, do you think we'll have a cure ever? And I was like, you better hope not. I was like, because if you've listened to the radio on the way to this talk, if you've read a book this morning, if you've watched TV, ADHD is there. It's
yeah,
everywhere.
it's everywhere. Yeah, absolutely.
In the
And
creative
especially
industries.
especially in that kind of media and entertainment
Yeah,
industry, music, anything sort of artistic and creative, it's there. I
yeah,
think I think to be an artist, you've got to have that kind of way of thinking, you know. Um, and that's how it is. Some people take drugs to get that, and some people just have ADHD, and that's the way I see it. Do you know what I mean? And
we've
yeah,
had.
it
Sorry.
def no, it's okay. It definitely you're definitely forward thinking. You're thinking outside the box.
Yeah,
I mean, don't get me wrong. I get days where I feel completely um, penalized, mind blocked. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Where I can't think, can't function, can't string a sentence together. And it's just a big black hole, and I'm gazing into it, and and then you've wasted the full day procrastinating. But then when you really get your sort of stuff together, it's a marvelous tool, and it's
mm,
really, really helped me. And I think the biggest part, which we'll speak about in a bit, and I think the biggest thing that's really helped me in terms of getting it all together is skateboarding for sure.
mm,
Absolutely, that sport has definitely um, it's definitely enhanced how I present myself to people, and how I am as a human being. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's yeah. I've worked with that, and it's worked with me, and together we work very well together. So
And I know my son, who's for the listeners who don't know, he's autistic and ADHD. That for him was life changing. Was skateboarding as well.
yeah,
So primary school, okay, some struggles. You start to get these negative labels. You went to secondary school.
yeah.
What
Secondary school.
what happened
Well, the
there?
sort of back end of primary school, year 5 and 6, was abysmal.
Right.
Because I think as you start getting a little bit older, sort of 9, 10, 11 years old, the expectations are there from
Right.
everybody around you, from
Absolutely.
adults, from parents, from teachers, from youth workers, whoever it is that you're around. So even peers, do you know what I mean? So there's expectations, and when there's expectations, things get harder. And for me, I was, completely. If I was rubbish at following rules, I was rubbish at listening, I was rubbish at functioning, getting my stuff together and making things happen. If I wasn't prompted, or I wasn't coached, or I wasn't mentored correctly, shall we say, I would hyperfixate on the wrong things, or a daydream, and half the time if we done that, it would be an amazing thing. You know what I mean? Or I would, wander off, procrastinate, talk to somebody for a long period of time, and then realize there's only 10 minutes of this lesson left.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then rush to do anything and just throw things together. It was chaos. There was no pride there in that respect. everything was just thrown together. Punctuality was lapsed. My attention was lapsed. Anything will do kind of mentality. And
Yeah.
that's not how I am now, and that's certainly not who I am as a person. But that's what it was like to live with. And I started to see changes in my family. I started to get into more trouble at home and things. And I was never a bad person. There was no malice in me or anything
Yeah.
like that. But obviously, that kind of disorganization has consequences. And of course, people are going to get frustrated and they're going to get angry and they're going to lash out, and you're going to be the reason why. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No matter what's happened, I've always been the reason why. I hate trouble. I hate conflict.
Mm.
I hate drama. But wherever I've gone, and to some extent, even as an adult, trouble seems to follow me everywhere I go.
Mm.
And it's I like that for a lot of people with ADHD. And
It's
it's
that
really, really sad.
it's that really difficult one because we look like a neurotypical person. So if a neurotypical person's doing all those things that you just described, they're either stupid and they haven't understood and can't do it,
Yeah.
or they're making a
Or they're
choice.
using ADHD or something along them lines as an excuse for why they can't do it. Or
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
It-
totally with you on that. Yeah.
but when you're intelligent, as you are, then it's perceived from a neurotypical viewpoint that you're making the decision to purposely do those things, and
Yeah,
that's where we start to
exactly,
get in trouble.
exactly. And that's happened a lot, James, I think, in my life where people have been like, you know better than that. You shouldn't be doing that. Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
It's easy to say, sit up and listen, sit up and focus. I'm trying to do it. No, you're not. How do you know I'm not? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't know. You don't know. You
I
don't know.
think, and that we see that a lot, and we know that from recent studies that a child concentrating for 5 minutes with ADHD is doing more brain processing than a child that's concentrating for an hour. But at the same time, there's also it's that contradiction disease is ADHD, isn't it? Where again there'll be things that you were interested in at school, and their teachers will look and go, Ryan's concentrated for an hour there because it was something you were interested in.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
again, it looks like a choice, doesn't it, when you don't?
Yeah, but unfortunately, back in the early '90s and going even further, back than that, I don't think there was a lot of, that kind of engaging kind of mentorship, enrichment, working with young people in the education system.
Mm.
And this is where the education system goes wrong now in some respects. It's got better. I'm not going to slag it off and say it's terrible because it isn't. Some places are better than others, obviously.
Mm.
I do think it lacks consistency, and I also think my own opinion here. There's some schools that are still not thinking about people with neurodevelopmental conditions. They're teaching to kids that everybody learns, listens, functions, and does things the same, and
Mm.
that is so wrong because all they're doing is setting up a lot of young people for failure. Do you know what I mean? Later down the line,
Yeah.
um, and not everybody does learn and look at things like that, and that's something that needs to be addressed. I think the lack of understanding in the education system, and not just the lack of understanding, but the lack of expertise, the lack of knowledge, information on basic, you know, neurodevelopmental conditions is very lapse. And
Yeah.
and you've had it yourself, I've had it. You're getting professional people coming to you asking for advice, and it's a wonderful thing. At least they're asking and open minded about it. But why isn't this a compulsory thing that's put in place by the government? Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? It should be, and I think every school should be taught about it at least, or they should have a basic understanding. It should be a compulsory thing where you have a basic understanding with Sen.
Everyone benefits because we are. we are a pain in the arse, aren't we? In
Yeah,
classrooms,
we are, and that's
uh,
never once pretended that it's it's an easy thing because it isn't. I said in an interview recently, I understand people find me, distractive, overwhelming, intense, annoying,
yeah,
and I still get that now, and I totally understand it,
yeah,
you know. Um, I'm not going to get all defensive. I'm like, oh no, I'm not, because I know what I am. I know what I've done, and I know how it comes across. But at the same time, if people nurture it a little bit better,
and
then
communicate with us differently.
communication, yeah, do you know what I mean? That communication,
Everyone benefits.
everybody benefits, and I'm
Everyone.
with you on that. Everybody benefits. The person with the condition benefits.
Yeah,
The person that's trying to teach benefits.
yeah,
School benefits with results. Everyone's a winner. Do you
yeah,
know? But trying to teach kids as one, it's not going to work.
yeah. And we see that in Finland where they have a different way of teaching, and ADHD is not really an issue. And I always say, and I'm sure this is something you agree with, but tell me if you don't, it's we only are disabled by the situations we go in, because if everyone was ADHD, a neurotypical person would find our world disabling.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally with you on that. I think people with ADHD, I think people look at me and think, oh yeah, typical ADHD, but they don't always see how insecure I can be or how I feel, or I think they
Yeah,
see heaps and bounds of confidence
yeah.
that's been channeled into something that I like doing, but strip that thing away from me, and I'm actually a very introverted person. Do you know
I
what I mean?
think,
Like,
and this is something I was really excited to talk to you about, because this is something we share, and it's interesting because I see your social media posts, and it comes from a place of jealousy, but there's criticism
oh
that
yeah, yeah, of course, major criticism.
there's
Yeah,
a perception that people, so, with ADHD, you say, oh, there's a pool. And the person with ADHD goes, let's just jump in and see what happens. And everyone else is dipping the toe in, is it warm? Is it cold? And that's the same for us. And we're viewed for a neurotypical lens. So to go on stage, if you're neurotypical, you need a lot of confidence.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But for us, we just don't care. It's not
No, we
about
don't
having
care.
confidence. We just
When
do
when
it.
I'm when I'm stood on the stage looking at 10,000 people, I'm not looking at 10,000 people thinking, oh, 10,000 people are looking at me and I'm really scared and nervous. I'm actually either daydreaming or looking way above them into the horizon and thinking about something else whilst doing a job. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And but after a show, when people come and say hello or they want to meet you and things, I get more nervous about that than I do
I,
going out to mass
totally with you
crowds.
there. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? When people know more about you than you know about yourself,
Yeah.
that's a scary thing. But I understand and comprehend what comes with that job. Do you know what I mean? And I wouldn't have signed up for it if I didn't. I've worked for years and years and years doing it. Not somebody that's just had it handed to me overnight. And
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. I think some people propel to fame, and I'm not saying that they don't deserve it or they shouldn't have it, but they're not ready for it. And it messes with them majorly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And yeah, it's scary. It's overwhelming. I find it overwhelming now. I know my fiance Sam. She finds it very overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're good at what you do because you go on stage and don't care. And that's it. And it's one of the things that people with ADHD, because they're not thinking about that, they're just like, oh yeah, we'll do that. It's even better than confidence, because you're just doing. You're not like having to
I mean,
build
it
up.
caused me major problems. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Professional problems in a very discriminative manner. Um, but did I do anything about it? No, because I didn't want to kick up a fuss. I'm just fine. As one door closes, another one opens,
Yeah.
and that's show business. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, the last few years I went for an audition to host a major TV show. I won't name the show, but it was a BBC show. And basically did the pilot for it. And it was a game show. It was going really well. And did the screen test, went great. Didn't hear anything back from the producers, didn't hear anything back from the executives. And the pandemic hit, and they thought, oh, this is probably binned off or scrapped. And then I found out later down the line, when I flicked on the television, that the show appeared. I won't name it for legal reasons. Show appeared, and it had a different presenter and comedian fronting it. And I just felt like I've been used in a lot of ways. Been used to film a pilot with an audience. And I just felt very exploited. So I actually confronted the producers as to why I wasn't given the show. Do you know what I mean? I just wanted for constructive criticism.
Yeah.
And they said, oh yeah, we loved your energy, thought you were very good, not very good at sticking to the script. You know, went ad-libbed a lot, but that was fine because it worked. Funny, but basically you moved around too much for our cameramen.
Right.
And it was difficult to follow you as you were relaying the information. So I kind of took that to heart a little bit. I was like, oh. So I started when I was doing a lot of festivals when the pandemic lifted, to stand in one place, I trained myself to try and stand in one, and that just didn't work. It just didn't
I'm with
work.
you there.
So that's probably why I think a lot of people ask me as to why, how come you still haven't had your own TV show? And I think the reason is because you might be able to relate to this because we're very much alike in some respects. I think people feel inferior. I think they feel a little bit threatened, and also they don't like the thought of the unknown, if that makes sense. Oh my God, he's got ADHD. He's got massive energy. It's a big personality. It just sounds completely combustible. You know, what's gonna happen? Yes, people, they're like people which, you know, dare I say it, are a little bit more boring than me. Do you know what I mean? But they do the job, and that's how it is. You know,
it's
a little bit more flavour to it is classed as or perceived as a bit edgy and a bit dangerous to sort of invest in. Do you know what I mean? And it's really sad. It's really sad, but you know, I'm not sour about it.
You'll train yourself. I think most TV presenters have ADHD.
Absolutely,
without a doubt.
Absolutely.
And I've realised
a lot of people coming forward, like Sam Thompson and Davina McCall, people like that. Do you know what I mean? It's not something they've just jumped into. They've had it their entire life. Yeah, they've become more understanding of it, I think, and learned a lot about it and whatnot. But to say they've just appeared with ADHD is probably wrong. They've had it all their life. So,
and if they're successfil, they're less likely to seek a diagnosis because it's benefited them as well, isn't it?
And that's the reason why. Do you know what I mean? I still feel like ADHD is, like I said at the beginning, best friend, worst enemy, and it does hold me back for some major opportunities. I know it does. People will never admit that. They will never tell me that. Do you know what I mean? But I know what they're thinking and feeling subconsciously, and I understand that is the reason. You know, as discriminative as it is, I could play that card if I wanted to, but I'm not going to, because I would rather just do it off merit and say, look, I've done this and I've achieved this, and I didn't need any, any foot in the door to get me there, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? So.
I can relate more than you know. That I've realised. I know we've both been involved in the music industry, and that is ruthless and cutthroat. And then I've realised the TV industry is even worse. The
TV industry is terrible. You know, they do these storyboards. They have these ideas, and then when you try and when you exceed their expectations, like you say, it gets a little bit sort of daunting for them and a bit dangerous. They pull the plug on it, and it's like, just neurospicy. Let us have our moment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could be great.
and
But
it's
enough. Next.
yeah, yeah, and it's hard not to take those falls. I was in talks with a massive show last year, and there was three, but one of them was really big, more to do with my other podcast, and then it just comes to nothing. But having ADHD as well, all you can think about is that potential, that opportunity. You can't
Yeah,
sleep. You dwell in on it.
it's sort of dangling carrots
Yeah,
thing. That's something which applies to me now, not just with my job and career, but everything that I do. I always see things that are much bigger and more daring, and yeah, and that's part of ADHD. Like I said, there's no you can't hold yourself back, can you? You jump straight in. You're either in it or you're not in it, and
you've and it and similarly, like our James has left a 2 hour voice note of excited ideas,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
they go, oh dear, this is a bit much.
Yeah, you can call, like I said, intense, oversharing things. It gets frustrating, and I think I try and see both sides of the party, but
Yeah,
but like I say, if people were given more of an opportunity sometimes, then
yeah.
I think everyone deserves, you know, I
People
th
like energy.
but I don't think we'd stick to 5 minutes, so it would probably be wasting 5 minutes, more like 5 hours.
Yeah,
But everyone deserves it, and I think the industry needs a bit of a shake up as well. The amount of professional people that know nothing about ADHD is very worrying in occupations as well.
yeah,
People going into jobs, adult ADHD, major problems.
yeah.
In occupations. I'm late for work, or I've lost a really important document, or I forgot to email that client back. You know what I mean?
And I think
Boss.
there's a crossover of class as well, isn't there? Yeah, we're
Absolutely.
both working class ADHD, and that adds a different layer of
Oh, of
things as
course,
well.
yeah, of course, yeah. That I mean, that's totally different conversation altogether, and I think the class system is something that needs abolishing, in my opinion. But I mean, what does that even mean? Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, if I think we must be like one of the only countries to have it. I might be wrong, but I've never known that anywhere else. Do you know what I mean?
We're
Yeah.
definitely wedded to it a lot more than other countries, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think in the performing arts world, I think I do dare say it. It's not
Yeah,
sour grapes. It definitely
absolutely.
helps. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Definitely helps. It's who you know, what you know, and
yeah,
no, it's a lot of underhand dealings. But
yeah,
we'll save that for another podcast.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I want to go to secondary school and the struggles there, and
Yeah,
then when I met you as well, and kind of talk about that. So what was secondary school like? Because you were kind of it's what I'm getting at is it's interesting because we've lost youth working away, and I saw you talk recently, and I found that really interesting because I didn't know about your struggles at school because often the kid with ADHD in a youth centre, that different way of working, that
yeah,
you just
yeah, of
flow
course.
between stuff. All we saw was this amazing young person with a massive personality, with enormous talent, who was like, "We're all celebrating you." And then,
That's nice, man. But
and
yeah,
then I
no,
hear at
with you,
school that you were struggling, and that's really interesting. And I feel it's sad that we've lost these spaces for people like you and I, because I was the same. I came through youth work
yeah, of
to
course,
be
of
able
course.
that one place where we're celebrated and can thrive.
I think for me personally, uh, I've spoken more openly and transparently about it in the last few years. Um, but secondary school was probably the worst period of my entire life.
Yeah, same.
The most traumatic,
Yeah,
equally the most memorable. There's things that you don't want to remember, but I remember everything, and that's
yeah,
such a neurodevelopmental thing. I remember everything, every fine detail from the date and the time and everything. But yeah, secondary school, the first year was really good. You know, I went into secondary school, that transition from primary to secondary, really ambitious, you know, really enthusiastic, just trying my best. And then I just fell off the wagon in year eight. I sort of I was very easily influenced,
Yeah.
got in with a very bad crowd of people um, who I thought liked me, took me under their wing, that kind of story. And sort of exploited my good nature. You know,
Yeah.
I made them feel good, or I made them laugh, or you know, they maybe didn't have the confidence, the personality to do something, so to get me to do it for them instead.
Yeah.
And I would just do it. It was very gullible, and I was vulnerable, you know, because like I said, you know, and I still feel it now. I was introverted but extroverted at the same time.
Which to a neurotypical person, they could
Yeah,
never understand that
them
concept.
endorphins, that sort of feeling of yearning for attention,
Yeah.
it sort of compelled me to do things that I shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
And I made a lot of mistakes. You know, everything got worse. It heightened, excessive talking, you know, mood swings, dysregulation with my emotions, not being able to control myself.
Yeah.
You know, the daydreams got darker and deeper. Everything was just much harder to sort of comprehend, really.
Puberty.
Puberty as well. Yeah, this is something that isn't. This is what I try and touch on when I do my talks in schools. You know, and I saw a massive change through puberty,
Yeah.
that chemical
Yeah. Yeah.
change. Um, I hated myself. You know, I didn't like myself. I didn't know who I was.
Mm.
I tried to blend with lots of different kinds of people, which you know isn't a bad thing, but went from person to person. I just didn't know who I was or
Yeah.
what I wanted. And when I thought I wanted something totally different the day after or a week later. So there was no consistency in my life, James, and it was hell. It was awful, you know. And I had a bit of an attitude as well. You know, anger started to build up in me.
Mm.
That sort of short fuse ADHD thing, you know, and I was fighting my own mind every day, you know, fighting it back, holding it back, and then it just all ended wrongly. And I hate people getting bullied. And when my friends, so-called friends, started doing it to somebody who was very, very vulnerable
Yeah.
and disabled in the playground, that's when I sort of, you know, played the moral high ground, shall we say, and touched what was right and what was wrong. I've always been brought up to know right from wrong.
Yeah.
So, and I sort of did a U-turn and confronted him, and it ended in a fight. And that fight ended up in me hitting a teacher and permanently getting expelled from school, which led me to PRU.
So you were
And
probably just in a meltdown then, and you needed to
yeah,
regulate. You know, if
everywhere I
someone's
went
in a
was
fight.
trouble, and everywhere, you know, everywhere I tried to take myself away from the trouble followed.
Yeah.
Or I was told that I wasn't good enough, or I didn't listen enough, or I didn't do this right, or
Yeah.
when he's told you shit for so long, you start to believe it. Do you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
you know, it's not a feel sorry for me moment, but at the same time, you know, like, that's like genuinely
It's
how I felt.
reality. Yeah.
And there's so many thousands of young people that feel that, and with that kind of fear of rejection. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's when I found skateboarding.
Yeah.
12 years old, 11 years old, got a skateboard that year, 2001.
Yeah.
Swap Pokemon cards for skateboarding.
Nice.
Big move, big move. I was rubbish for a few years, but I was consistent at it. And I used
Why
to
did you stay consistent? Because that one's interesting to me
stay
because like
consistent because the minute I stepped foot on it,
yeah,
one, I knew it was dangerous,
right. So
but
you were
I
getting the
also knew it was
dopamine.
fast, and I knew it was furious, and I knew you're either in it or you're not in it. So
Yeah.
it's simple as that, basically. But it's a totally free zone, a blank canvas, metaphorically,
Yeah.
because you don't need anybody around you to do it.
Yeah.
You don't need to be part of a team to do it. You don't need to be socially accepted to do it.
Yeah.
You can just pick up a board with wheels and go off anywhere you want on it.
Yeah.
with music in. And from that moment in time, it sort of led on to me wanting to be more creative and open my horizons a little bit and broaden them. And that's what I did. You know, I always say skateboarding taught me more than any teacher did.
Yeah.
Taught me
Yeah.
about culture, took me to different places, traveling, taught me about different creeds, different races, different music, different art that you get introduced on the graphics of the skateboard and
Yeah.
things, you know, street art and that kind of culture that's associated with skateboarding. Yeah, just a massive movement. And it helped me be more social as well. You know, I got talking to other skateboarders and other like-minded people, and yeah, I kind of took to it. Always been a big advocate for skateboarding.
Yeah.
I've always had its back, and I know that it's always had mine. So, and then I took 9 years out of it, and in the pandemic, when my mental health plummeted a little bit, I picked up a skateboard again because you were allowed to go out once a day to do your exercise, and that was
Yeah.
my way of getting out. And you know, found love for it again, and that was it. So even after that hiatus, I still came back and did it, and it's something that's never gone away.
Yeah.
You know, and even in the 9 years that I didn't do it, I was still watching videos on YouTube or tapping into Sidewalk magazine or seeing what some of my favorite skateboarders in the scene were up to and things. So yeah, that interest and passion has always been there, and it always will be.
Do you think it's skateboarding? It's not just a sport. It's a subculture as well. And do you think it embraces people that are a little bit different?
Yeah, I'm very neutral when it comes to the whole skateboarding thing. Now I can see arguments for and against the whole Olympic sport. Should it be glorified as it is? It's always been an underground movement. It's always
Yeah.
culture, etc. I see a proactive sport and I see a massive underground culture as well with it. So I see both parties. And like I say, I'm on the fence. I'm supportive of it being an Olympic sport because it gives young people ambition, gives them something to work towards, to train towards, and that's why there's been such an increase in the youth development and the um, the talent. The talent now is next level, and I think that's the reason why. But because obviously the goals are bigger. When we were younger, that there wasn't Olympic dreams or
Yeah.
competitions where you could go and win £10,000 or do you know what I mean? It was none of that. I think the you'd be stoked if you got a skateboard at a competition or some wheels or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So the level of things has changed massively. The bar's been risen. Um, but yeah, I will always see it as a culture because that's what it is. You know,
Yeah.
it's definitely a culture. You know, and it's built up of subcultures, like you say. You know, art, music,
Yeah.
you know, all these kind of things. So
And you've done stuff for charity as well. And I'm
yeah,
interested for you to maybe tell me how your ADHD is linked to this need to do things for charity as well. Because again, that's something I've seen you have got criticism for
yeah, I'm always
and
getting hammered for the charity thing,
doing stuff for
which I
charity.
find mind blowing in some respects.
Yeah.
Whenever I see somebody pop up on the television or on my social media or whatever that's doing something good for somebody else, the last thing I want to do is start slagging them off. You know what I mean? It's just not natural in my opinion, or in my world. I think it should be like that, but not everybody is like that. People are skeptical, and I understand why people are skeptical. Not me, obviously, but around,
Yeah.
especially what's been uncovered and things in recent years. But when I say I do things for charity, you know, it's more than just raising money. In my opinion, that to me isn't what charity is. It is how charity is helping somebody that's less fortunate than yourself,
Yeah.
but in a selfless manner.
Yeah.
So when it comes to ADHD, when I'm doing these talks, they're all done in, you know, selflessly because I'm not profiting. I don't want to make any money off something that's
Yeah.
going to cause me major problems in my life. You know,
Yeah.
why I want to cash in on it. Um, and I think that's where I need to sort of get some clarity because
I think a lot of people think, oh, he's in the public eye, so he must be making a lot of money off the back of it. Well, I haven't made a penny off it, and I've been
You do
very
them for free. Yeah.
free, always have done it for free. I wake up to 30, 40 messages a week easily from people who I've never seen, faces I've never met, asking for advice about someone they know with ADHD or their son or someone in the family or around their, it's affecting them. And I'll give them honest, free advice. It's never ever been anything more than me just wanting to help someone else not have to go through what I went through.
And that's
Yeah.
that's all it is. That's the basics to it. There's nothing more, nothing less.
And I think
But
from a neurotypical point of view, sometimes, not all of them, but I think they're like, well, why, he must be getting something out of it. Why else would you do it? But I think that for me, it goes back to that, what you were talking about, that injustice as a child.
yeah, and I think as you get older, you get wiser. And obviously, I've got 4 children myself now, so I know what the system's like, and nothing in it, not a lot's changed. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So the way I see it is, I just don't want to see other young people have to go through what I went through. I was very lucky and fortunate to have my mum and dad in my life.
Yeah.
Who have been my biggest fans since day one. But not every, I appreciate, I'm open minded, very mindful about that. Not everybody's got that support
Mm.
network. And you see it so many times around you how many people are falling off the wagon because they haven't got a support network. Costs nothing to be nice to people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to be fake, but you just be nice. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's mind blowing. But yeah, charity has caused me a lot of trouble.
I
um,
always find that interesting.
yeah, it's always caused me a lot of trouble, but I still pursue in doing it.
Yeah.
And it's something that I won't ever stop doing because I got a second chance at life, and
Yeah.
not everybody gets that, and that's to me fundamentally that means more to me than yeah than people will ever know. I think, but
And we know that kids with ADHD in school will get in trouble to fight for what they perceive as justice. It's the justice issue, and that doesn't stop. I've done a couple of events recently, and someone said to me, "Well, why are you doing it for charity when you could have taken the ticket price?" And in my head, I'm like, "Well, why wouldn't I do it for charity?"
yeah, I know,
Um,
right? Oh,
and it just seems odd to some people, but I think to ADHD, it seems a very normal thing to want to make the world a better place because we struggled a little bit.
yeah, absolutely. Like I say, definitely helped me do a lot of good things. Without it, I probably wouldn't have been able to do them. Skateboarding around Everton Airfield for 10 hours. You
Yeah,
know, going for a world record. I definitely wouldn't have been able to do that. It definitely shows the energy thing and the brain and body. If you can connect them together, even for a few moments, then yeah, big things happen. And I've seen it happen in skateboarding. That tenacity and that kind of repetitive behavior, throwing yourself at something until you
mm,
do it. That's perseverance. And I think
yeah,
that's why I like skateboarding metaphorically with ADHD, because it teaches you to get absolutely shredded, throw yourself
slam.
around, slam dunked, and then pick yourself back up time and time again. Do you know what I mean? And the amount of times I've fallen on the floor and eat shit is bad. It's numerous. I've lost count. But then you get back up and try again and go again, and then somehow miraculously it seems to just happen. And it,
Another metaphor for that is the skate park, which you did loads for, and also got a lot of hate for as well.
yeah, I mean the skate park has definitely caused me issues politically,
Yeah,
sure. And I still get them problems now everywhere I go. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
it doesn't matter what show I'm doing or who I'm working with, where I'm going. People will always come up to me and talk to me about that. Oh, we saw that campaign. It was crazy. Da, 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 da. And for me, it's I'll talk about it openly. It's always been an open thing.
yeah,
But by the way, I've got a new tune out, or I'm supporting Ella Henderson or whatever. Oh yeah, we've seen that. But let's talk about the skate park. Like
yeah,
all these hurdles that you came across. It could have all been avoided. All everything that we did could have all been avoided. I'm not particularly proud of it, but at the end of the day, if they just listened, none of it would have happened.
You were. I remember seeing you at the skate park, and you were just a man excited about keeping that facility open, something that changed your life for other young people, and you were
Exactly. Well, it's not just
determined to
changed my
keep it
life; it's
going.
changed hundreds of lives,
Mm,
realistically. And without it, it's just going to be another street corner or another bench in a park, and at least it gives young people an opportunity to see the bigger picture.
mm,
I'm coming and hanging around at the skate park, vaping or smoking or doing whatever I'm doing, but there's people around me doing all this creative stuff. Maybe I could play a part in that.
yeah,
It plants the seeds. Before you know it, you've got a skate school and you're teaching hundreds of kids how to skateboard across North Yorkshire, and you've got a scene on your hands. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So yeah, like I say, all it's ever needed is people to show other people how to use it properly.
yeah,
Such easy things that are always overlooked, and it proves the point to me.
yeah,
So
and free. It's
yeah,
there.
free. Yeah, it's free to sit, free facility. Not many things are free now.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But yeah, very proud of that. Very proud of skate park.
yeah.
Saved my life, saved many kids' lives. It's a good facility. So
So, and I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know you've got
yeah, I've got a football game in 15 minutes.
right, really quickly. You're a polymath, and you spoke about some of the stuff you're doing in an absolute typical ADHD way. You're really successful and doing so many things. Let everyone know what you're doing.
At the moment, or all
Just
collect.
in general, yeah. Let everyone know,
So
like,
at the moment, I am embarking on a UK Grinch tour. So I am the Yorkshire Grinch, the man behind the Yorkshire Grinch. Yeah. Um, I let out all my ADHD energy in that character,
yeah,
made and get away with it. I think he's the only character I can really get into, and do everything that a typical ADHD does, and not get into trouble for it, but get a round of applause for it and a pat on the back. Whereas if I didn't have the costume on, people would be like, "Oh my god, this guy's crazy. He's a maniac," you know. So yeah, I love playing the Grinch. That's coming up for Christmas. Do our bit for charity with that as well. I always go into the hospitals
yeah,
and yeah, I find that very just to see people smile just for a few minutes in a very stressful job, and see the young people on Blood Day and things, just get that glimmer of hope and a bit of a smile. It pumps you to go and do the next big thing. So yeah, that's that. That's Christmas, and then next year we're gonna dedicate January to March doing these ADHD talks. You, me, and ADHD is the campaign. Um, because I ran out of time in October, ADHD Awareness Month, and I got inundated so many. But I was shocked at, like you say, how many people will offer you money to go and do these things, and I haven't charged anybody a penny for them. And I've always said that I don't want paying for something which has caused me major problems in my life, and I don't see the point in cashing in on it, and I never will. So
good on you. I
money from
think,
DJing, make money from my hosting and my art and creativity, but to make money from talking about something that I feel very passionately about and affects me now, and has, like I say, has caused me major strife as well as major achievements.
yeah.
Um,
And you
it,
glossed over a bit. When you say hosting, you're hosting massive events and festivals. When you say
oh
art, you're
yeah,
creating
yeah,
art,
yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
these other things you're
I'm
doing.
very lucky. Like I say,
DJing,
persevered. I've worked very hard over the last
you
sort of
have.
10 years, and I'm lucky enough now to be classed as an established artist that's supporting major artists on tours, and that's what I
Yeah,
do. I came off a big one last year. I supported Ella Henderson and Jax Jones and Joel Corey, and then I do a lot of sportsmen's talks, interviewing them. worked with some of the best in the world: Floyd Mayweather, Tyson Fury, Frank Bruno last year. So I'm very fortunate. Gaza, yeah, thought I had a troubled life,
I was about to say, do you think he's ADHD? I always have
uh,
done.
but I like him. I like him. I feel for him, and yeah, he was a great guy to work with. But again, I think he's maybe definitely on the spectrum somewhere along the
Yeah, yeah,
line. Without the alcohol, do you know what I mean?
yeah. I better let you go. You're gonna have to come on because we could do about 5 hours, I think, talking
Absolutely, yeah,
together.
absolutely.
I'm just gonna ask you one last question. It was really interesting, and it
Go
was
for it.
almost an analogy when you said about the Grinch, and there is the expectation that the Grinch behaves in an ADHD way. Do you think if we looked different to neurotypical people, things would be really different because the expectation wouldn't be there?
Absolutely, yeah. I do think that. I think it's that kind of judgmental mindset. Do you know what I mean? It's yeah, expectations again. People have expectations. The Grinch obviously is a metaphor, a character, whatever. People have seen the movie, they know what happens in it. But how many people do we look at in the street and say, "Oh, yeah, they must be a certain way," or it's human nature, but it's true and it happens.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm totally with you on that. That's a really good way of ending it, I think. But I will just say quickly because I didn't manage to get it in that talking about youth work, if it hadn't been for people like yourself working with me, doing that enrichment at a very difficult time in my life, then I probably wouldn't be sat here talking like we're talking now. Because, like you say, you understood me, gave me that little bit of hope, and you pointed me in the right direction to go on and do bigger and better things. And like you say, it just takes that good role model in your life to
And you did
change
us
it.
proud. You've worked your works,
But I'm just
and you
saying,
did
if
us
we can
proud.
get more good role models out there,
Yeah,
the world will be a better place. So,
no, definitely. Thank you, Ryan. And where can people find out all your stuff?
Instagram, Facebook. I don't use Twitter anymore, X or whatever it's called. YouTube, it's all there. Official Ryan Swain. Drop me a message.
Well, thank you, Ryan, and good luck in your football match tonight.
Cheers, man. Thank you. Cheers, James. See you
Thank
later,
you.
buddy.
Bye bye.